tzaddik of every generation. So I think there's a medrash, it might be in Tanat Ve'eliyo. There's a girsa that says, not only Hera la'adam arishon kol dor v'darshav, not only did he show every generation's tzaddik and chacham and rabbi, he also showed him each generation's murderers. So Rabbi Taitz, who spoke at the funeral, asked, why did Hashem show the murderers to Adam Rishon? So Rabbi Taitz said an unbelievable pshat. What does this mean? One gersa says he saw the tzaddikim, the other gersa says he saw the rishaim. So he says, you know what it means? I'll tell you what it means. Reb Aaron Kotler would have lived much longer if he would have had more help collecting money for the yeshivot, for the aniyim, for the B'nai Torah. But because he didn't have enough help, there were so many bills, so many expenses, there was a tremendous pressure on him, and it took a toll on his life, on his health. And that's why he was niftar. Had he had more money and more support, he would have lived longer and spread more Torah and made more Talmidim and built more Mosdot HaTorah. So Hashem had to show Adam Rishon, all the great tzaddikim like Reb Aaron, and all the Rishayim that they didn't help. Because had they helped, he would have lived longer and he wouldn't have been niftar. Did your hat blow off when you heard such a story? That's how important it is to support Torah. Otherwise, it's an achrayut. If you don't do it, chas shalom, it's like, God forbid, like murder. Wow. The next time I want to call a rich man and ask him to donate, I'm not going to be embarrassed. Because I'm going to remember, it's our achrayut. It's our responsibility to support Torah. And if someone doesn't support Torah, he's a murderer. And you have to help. We need your help. One more thought I want to share with you. And I'd like to give this to you because you're sitting very nice. And I'd like to give this to another boy who's sitting very mature.
I'm standing very torn. Hey, it's a fairly seltzer.
All right, we're deciding.
I don't like seltzer.
I heard this vart from Rav Shimon Schwab. Dr. Jack Cohn said it over when he spoke in shul on Shabbat. He said when Yaakov Avinu gave a bracha to his two children, he gave a bracha to his grandchildren, Ephraim and Menashe. So he moved his hands and he put his right hand on the younger one, Ephraim, and his left hand on Menashe, the older one. And he told Yosef that even though Ephraim's younger, he's going to produce a greater Talmid Chacham, and he produced very shortly after that Yoshua bin Nun, a couple hundred years later, whatever, who was the Gadol Adar, who took over from Moshe Rabbeinu. So Rav Shimon Schwab asked, why did he have to go like this? If he wanted to honor the younger son, he could have just told the son, here, come here, stand on this side, and I'll put my hand like this. Why did he have to go and take his hand and then put it like this?
Because of respect.
So says Rav Shimon Schwab, a beautiful pshat. Yaakov knew that Yoshua bin Nun, who comes from Ephraim, he's great. And Ephraim was greater than Menashe. You know how? He was always learning Torah. Lo pasik pumei migersei. His mouth never stopped learning Torah. Whether it was Tanakh, or Shas, or Shulchan Aruch, or Medrash, or Kabbalah. He was the masmid. He was the one always in the Beit Midrash. He lived there. So Menashe, though, was busy helping Yosef run the government, run the Egyptian empire, making sure all the people were paying their taxes, making sure everyone's getting the stipends that they're due, running the welfare department. So since Menashe was busy with the money, so he didn't want to go put Ephraim on the right side and say he's greater, because then Menashe would have been insulted. What, am I not helping the people? So on purpose he went like this, and he interlocked the brothers, and he showed that the Jewish community needs both. We need the Talmidei Chachamim, the rabbis, and we also need the Givirim, the Ashirim, the Askanim, the people who help raise money for the yeshiva, the people who go out and sell raffles to raise money for the yeshiva. We need them all. So that's why I went like this. So when you give your son a bracha, and you say you should be like Ephraim and Menashe, have in mind, you should be like Ephraim, a big masmid who's always learning Torah. And like Menashe, you should also be able to make the cheshbonot of the money and make sure that everyone has the money that they need to run the business on the side. And one more thought. Reb Gifter once said, do you think when I was a kid, I didn't play in the snow? Of When I was a bachur, I liked to play in the snow. But the difference between me and nowadays when kids play in the snow is, he said that when he was playing in the snow, he was busy talking in Torah with his friends while they were playing in the snow.
Really? No, but also his friends? That's beautiful.
Today we like to play in the snow. Can't wait to build a snowman and go on the sled. But are we talking Torah? His love for Torah was so great that even when he was playing, imagine playing basketball or baseball, in the middle, you're screaming out, I have another teretz to the Tosafot's question. Or did you see that Rashi? According to that Rashi, should be zocher. So live the pasuk. Ma'ahavti Toratecha kol hayom misichati. Ma'ahavti Toratecha ay kol hayom misichati. Ma'ahavti Toratecha hayom misichati. Ma'ahavti Toratecha kol hayom misichati. There's a beautiful story on page 261 in this book, Sha'al Avicha V'Ageircha, which is a collection of stories from the famous international speaker and Maggid of Yerushalayim, Rav Schwadron. Rabbi Yisrael Spiegel did a great job putting together his best stories, and I like saying these over and over. My daughter just called from Eretz Yisrael today, and she says, Abba, I need a good story for my next class that I'm going to give. Can I have that picture for a moment? And I said, sure. And I whipped out the book, and I was able to tell a story. This is a picture of Rabbi Schwadron. It was a world-famous darshan, tzaddik, Talmid Chacham, who had a tremendous sense of humor and tremendous knowledge of Torah, and that's why everyone considered a big treat to get to hear him. When I was a child, I got to hear him a number of times, but because I didn't speak Yiddish at the time, all I would be doing is listening to him, and then when everyone would burst out laughing, I would say to someone, what did he say? What did he say? And they would try to explain to me the joke, which sometimes didn't fly over in English as well as it did in Yiddish. And then a few minutes later, I hear them laughing again, and I'd say, what did he say? What did he say? And I don't remember so clearly, but that was my experience. What did he say? What did he say? Anyway, this is a scary story, and it really is a story that teaches that Hashem doesn't forget. It's a story about Yitzchak the drunk, Yitzchak the shikar. And the story was set over by Reb Chaikel Milsky. And Reb Chaikel Milsky is really the main character in the story. Reb Chaikel Milsky said on himself that he suffered a lot in the middle of his life. I guess that means in his 40s, 50s. In the prime of his life, when many people are strong, he was finding it very difficult. And Reb Chaikel Milsky felt that the reason he was suffering was because he one time didn't run after a mitzvah and he embarrassed the Talmid Chacham. So he did two wrongs in one day. Once embarrassing a Talmid Chacham, secondly not running after a mitzvah. And he felt that this is one of the reasons why in the middle of his life he lost his feet. His legs had to be amputated and removed by the hospital, by doctors, because they didn't want a disease that had started growing in his toes to spread to his major organs in his heart, and he lost his feet. And he's going to tell a story now why he thinks Hashem made him lose his feet, even though he sure could have used those feet, because I said he was a great Marbitz Torah in Yerushalayim, and he definitely can use his feet to run to shul, run to the Beis Medrash, run to the yeshiva, run to speak and learning with the Talmid Chacham. It turns out he said like this: when he was a young man, he learned in Slobodka. Slobodka was a great, famous, big yeshiva. And he used to look forward to Thursday nights because they would do something called mishmar. Mishmar means they would stand guard. What would they guard? They would guard the Torah by spending a late night learning together with some friends. And this was done every Thursday night in a shul. Now, which shul did they learn in? It was called the funeral shul, or in Hebrew, the Beit HaKnesset Halvayat Hamet, the synagogue where they used to escort the dead to the cemetery. Now, why was the shul called that? Because the minhag of cities is to keep the cemetery, the Beis HaChaim, outside the town. So right at the edge of the city was this shul, and it was used for saying a hesped, a eulogy when someone died. So it was called the funeral shul. If you want to see a funeral shul, there's one in Bensonhurst, Magen David. It's located, I think, on 21st and 67th. It's a shul that's designated for levayas. Almost any Sephardic Syrian funeral would take place in there, and there would be speeches, and they have a building outside for Kehanim who are not allowed to come in the room with the mace, and they say the funeral. So it turns out this was common in Lithuania, that they would take the aron of the dead body and stop by that shul and say hespedim. And when this hespedim, the funeral, the eulogies were done, they would escort the body to its resting place in the cemetery. So that's why it was called the funeral shul. Well, Reb Chaikel and his friends decided that's a nice place to learn because it's quiet and we could have the whole base medrash to ourselves. So him and his 5 buddies would find themselves on Thursday night in the shul steiging together. So you see, they were good kids. I mean, they're good boys. We're talking about teenagers that, were sitting there learning. Well, there was someone else in the shul besides them, and that was Yitzchak the Shikar. That's what he was called, Isaac the drunk. And he had some clothes that were somewhat like shmatas, and he would use his blankets or whatever, and he would sleep in the shul. Nebuch, I guess he was homeless and he didn't have a house. And to keep himself warm on the cold winter nights, he would cuddle up his blankets next to the oven. Today we have Baruch Hashem heaters, but in olden days they would use ovens, the same oven that you bake in, and they would just let the heat from the oven, the door would stay open and it would warm up the place. It turns out he was having a relaxing night, whatever, pleasant night in a warm, cozy shul, resting. When late that night, when it was howling cold outside with the snow falling and the wind blowing and ice everywhere on the windows, approximately 3 o'clock in the morning, the door cracked open and in came an Abal Agala, a wagon driver, with tears on his face. And he said, I just walked from so far away, freezing out. I walked a few miles from Slobodka, and my horse slipped on the ice. It fell over. I need help. I can't pick it up. So he was coming to ask the Baharim if they would follow him a few miles in the cold snow to pick up his horse. Now, I guess if you're in a warm, cozy room, the last thing you want to do is go out in the ice cold weather and try to lift up a horse, which doesn't sound like an easy thing to do. This was before tow trucks were invented. And it turns out it was very cold outside. If someone walked outside, their bones would chill. And in this shul, it was so warm and nice. So the Bacharim started deciding, should we go, shouldn't we go? There were those that said, yes, of course, chesed. Ozev Tazov, the Torah says you have to help someone lift up his animal that falls down. And there were those that said, no, what are you talking about? Bittul Torah. We're learning Torah, what are you talking about? And there were those that said, no, but we can help a yid with his parnasa, this is his horse. And as they were deciding what to do, Nimnu v'gamru, they voted and decided that learning Torah is the greatest mitzvah, so we don't have to go out. When the Baal Agala, the wagon driver, heard this, his heart broke.